Recording in progress.
Call the meeting to order of the Hadley Select Board meeting for March 5th, 2025. Tonight we have a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. But just for starters, this evening for Select Board, we have David Phil, Randy Iser, myself, Molly Keegan. And we have Amy Parsons, who is participating via Zoom. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, signed by the Governor on February 15th of the same year, I announced that this meeting of the Select Board is being recorded by Hadley Media, Select Board's office via Zoom, and asked if there is anyone present who is also recording this meeting. It appears that no one is. Jennifer, please let the minutes reflect that no one else has indicated that they are recording the meeting. Okay. Do you need to call? Okay.
I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Today we have Paul Benjamin, Shardul Parmar, and myself, Amy Pfeiffer.
Okay. All right. So the primary purpose for this by-board meeting this evening is to hear what Mike Mason and Linda Sanderson have to say about the work that they have done so far on the FY26 budget. So not sure who's taking that.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Linda for all the work that she's done. I'll tell you that the adjustment to the finance director position has been a tremendous help to me. Somebody who doesn't have a background in finance, and I've learned a lot from her. I've actually been in her office several times, and she's basically teaching me. She's holding a classroom session, teaching me how all of this works. So a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the the numbers, it's more than just that. So what we're going to talk about tonight, I'll let Linda get into the nuts and bolts of it. And, I think we are probably going to shift at some point in the discussion from the mechanical discussion to more of a philosophical discussion, but we'll get there some type of presentation.
What, is he a good student or do we need to?
He's doing great. He's great. He's great. And it's always good to be explaining things. Again, it helps for reiterate things in my own mind. So it's been a good working relationship. So, Jennifer has, if we could get going, I have a PowerPoint to share. And this is basically the entire FY26 budget in 4 slides. We have the 55-page budget book has been prepared, and I don't have them tonight. We're still working out some things with the enterprise funds budgets, which are the last 3 pages, and we have a meeting about that tomorrow. So we're not going to talk about that one tonight, but I'll do a brief follow-up probably in a couple of weeks about where we stand with the enterprise. It does kind of stand on its own, and it has its own issues. So the books should be ready either by the end of this week or early next week, and we'll be printing them and have them ready for everybody. So let's see if I'm controlling it. Okay, so we start out the beginning of the budget is always the revenue projections, where how much money do we have to work with? And this is a summary of the 4 sources of revenues that the town takes in each year. The 4 categories of sources are property taxes, which is the top line. The current what we're projecting is in the column in blue. The columns in green are the year that we're sitting in right now, FY25, and where we stand halfway through the year is next to it, so the 2 green columns. So we're looking at in FY26 projecting a tax amount of $15,762,986, which significantly for preparing a budget means an increase of $560,392 over the prior year. That's the last column in white, which shows that's the increase over the prior year. It's not as much of an increase as last year, and the main reason for that is new growth. We had a particularly good year last year in new growth. And it settled back down again. So we're off about 100,000 in that category. State aid is the next. We really have no control over state aid. Those are our cherry sheets. We're told how much we're receiving and how much they're assessing back. And so we use the net amount is shown here, the net amount being projected by the last worksheets, the governor's worksheets, the governor's listing is $1,036,539. That's about $94,245 increase over last year. There are 3 more rounds with the next budgets, the House budget, the Senate budget. They go through and they make shifts, and usually we see a little bit more money, but this is what we have to work with right now. I would like to see it up a little bit higher, but we just don't know. The state has its own issues. Every level of government has its own issues right now. Our local receipts is the third category. That's everything that the town collects, permits, excise, tax. Anytime you go into town hall, buy a dog license, building permits. These add up to, it's a good chunk of our budget, $4.4 million, $4,405,400 this year, which is hopefully an increase of $151,463 over last year. If you look back, swing back to FY23 and FY24, you see those were 4.2 million for those 2 years in a row. Those were actuals. I'm not sure anymore what our projected was. It's knowable, but what we have right here are the actuals. And project for 25, also about 4.2 million. We're projecting 4.4 million, but you see over a 4-year span there, we're not seeing the increases that we did when we were climbing out of COVID. We were that was growing by leaps and bounds because we were recovering from where we were before, and we ended up actually going quite a bit ahead. But it has leveled out, which means we've got more to work with, but a lot, not as much more to work with as not the level of increase that we have had in prior years.
And as part of the projected increase, would that be attributable to new hotels coming online?
Some of it was in rooms and meals tax. Because looking at the beginning half of the year, comparing to the years before, we were coming out ahead, and those tend to be fairly stable once we get into a new level of collection. It tends to continue at that rate.
Is excise tax, pardon me?
I meant
Is excise tax in the local or is it in the property? So automobiles.
Local.
in local receipts.
Says in local.
Yes,
Okay,
that,
thanks.
and also, yeah, in the rooms excise tax too, Paul.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, and so we are still seeing nice increases. That's been one of our better increase slopes over the last few years, is the rooms and meals are doing better. And that is also our potential for seeing yet another large increase if we're allowed to, if the state passes legislation which increases the percentage. It's going to, that's going to be more benefit to Hadley than many towns because it is such a large amount for us. So we're very hopeful for that, but of course it's not something that we can build in as an expectation at this point. But we pulled it out there as something that we hope will kick in and help us eventually with some.
Question on state aid, on 2024, it dipped down, and I don't remember, was there a reason for that?
That was our, the assessments that were up. So it's a net, the state aid is a net of the amount that they're giving us, which they're always happy to tell you how much more they're giving to the town, but they never have fresh releases of how much they're assessing us in return. And that has been one for us. Sometimes one year we found the school choice assessments, or the school, not just choice, but the charter, we're out of line and high, and we worked with Annie at that point, and they don't recalculate them on the spot. It's like, well, this is what we're giving you, but then by the end of the year, the fourth quarter, there is usually a reconciling distribution. So even when we receive our cherry sheets saying how much we're getting in each category, we will sometimes get an extra kicker in that last quarter when everything is sold.
So how are we doing with this one? So I see what the projected and then what we have for the actuals coming in. Are we expecting more for that?
Are you talking about 25?
25.
Yes, we have, so we're at halfway through the year, we have more than half of it collected.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're not necessarily even payments throughout the year. So it would be nice to say we take that and we double it. And it could work out that way, but it doesn't necessarily.
The 2025 actual. That number, the bottom number, is that in line with what it was for 24, or is it more or less? What was it? What was the year-to-date
Are you talking
actual?
about which part of it?
The year-to-date actual, the
Uh-huh.
FY 25 was that number, that 9,618,000.
On the bottom, okay,
Yeah.
we were pretty much on target for as the percentage that we were. The first section of the budget book does give the year-to-date analysis as far as what percentage revenue were we at last year and what percentage this year. I know you don't have it
Yep.
yet, but
I'm just talking about not percentage, but
Yeah.
the actual dollar amount.
well, it relates to the dollar amount though, because so last year for the total revenues, we had collected 47.9% of our projections at halfway point last year, and this year we are at 48.92% of the projections of the year. And because they are so similar, in fact, that it does translate into dollars, it means that we should be able to expect that our that we are on track again for at least making the income that we projected and maybe a bit more.
Because the excise tax tends to fall. Right, March, April.
I'm just wondering year to year, just like from year to year, but we're down about 1%. From year to year. This year is 20.
No, we're not down, we're up 1% of the projections. How that translates into dollars? Well, it really, we're comparing it to our projections to see where we stand in that year. Our dollars are always ahead, but it doesn't matter if our dollars in collection are ahead, if we're at a lower percentage of collection than from the year before, then we may not get all the money that we were anticipating. We would have to make some shifts in the current year budget.
What I'm saying is that we're at under 49%, where last year we were over 49%.
No, we were 47.9% last year.
Oh, 47.
And this
Okay,
year we're
sorry.
48.9.
Okay,
So we're up 1%
got it.
of our collections. So that is a section, and I think that's a good question. I mean, to know. Again, before we even get to the revenues, I always do those status reports on where we are with all of the funds, the general funds, the sewer, water, and Hadley Media, to make sure that we're on course for collecting, because if we're projecting 26 and we're not, and we're already looking halfway through the year, we're needing to get that 20,895,000 we're projected for 25, then we have more issues than 26. We've got to back up again and look at 25 again. So at this point in time, we were on track. That it is telling us that so far our projections are good. So we would not, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to say, well, halfway through the year, we should have half of our collections. Well, that's not true, because I think as Molly was suggesting, our motor vehicle excise, $1 million only comes in. We have certain things that come in the second half of the year. And because they always come in the second half of the year, where it's never going to look at 50% in December. So a better comparison is really what percentage had we collected by this time last year, and that lines up much better.
And why do we think state aid is going to go up, since it's been going down last 3 years?
I just mean up from, you mean the 94 up or up after that?
The state aid being 23.
Because we already have the governor's,
Okay, that's already been allocated. Okay,
is already said, we've already have that list of what's going to be given and what's being assessed. So that is that's an actual net amount that we have. It can't go down, but usually it goes up. Usually that's the most conservative one we have. But and usually they go up from there, more is given to them. But depending on how they view our assessments, even though the total might go up, our share might not go up. So that's why we can't count on it. We're just have to put the stake in the ground where it is right now. And that's what we've done every year. All righty, and the last one is our enterprise receipts. Those are the chargebacks to the sewer, water, and Hadley Media. It was a more modest increase this year. And which is good. They've got their, I mean, it's good for them. They have their own issues in trying to balance their budgets. So we certainly didn't want to get any worse than that. We had a larger increase last year. You see, it went from 449 to 497. It went up, what's that, like almost $50,000 in this year of 19. So it would have been, you know, if we collected more, it'd be good for this budget, but it would not be good for their budget. So, you know, we're trying to be fair all around. So any more questions? So, the bottom line and going over the full increase in revenues. In the last column, the revenues that are available for us to use are at this preliminary point then is $825,229. That the revenues are a part of what funds our budget, and you'll see by the end we get getting through this that we also have other transfers. We use free cash and other sources of funding that we use to balance the budget. But we'll get there. To start with, 825,000 is our increase. So here is the budget set out by government category. We have the I refer to them as the 100s, 200s, 300s, but most people don't. So the title is there, general government, that's town hall and most of our boards. Public safety is police, fire, and ambulance, and also includes building inspections. Yep. Education is all of the school. And public works does not include water and sewer, they're enterprise funds, but it includes all the other highway budgets. Ambulance, I mean, not ambulance, streetlights, cemetery have been worked in there now. They do building maintenance. And again, these will all be set out separately. You'll be able to see each of the budgets and each line within the budget. So you'll have lots of information on what these all are. Human services, Board of Health. Just Board of Health, Council on Aging and Veterans Services. and the $100 Oliver Smith wood. And then we have our 600s, our next, that's the library, historical, and Parks and Rec. As you see, there's fewer departments in the one with so many different departments really is the 100s and then 200s. So there are fewer in those 500s and 600s. The only thing in debt payment is the debt and interest we pay each year, debt exclusions and levy payments. Again, it's not the water and sewer payments. And then there's the benefits, other, that's insurance, health insurance, and workers' comp, unemployment, various things, which again will be itemized for you. What else? Life insurance, Medicare, OPEB is in there, and retirement. So that's a pretty hefty budget that we don't have direct control over. We have control over the staffing, which is in the other budgets. But once we have that, and we have retired personnel, people who take various insurances that they're entitled to, and the number is what the number is at some point. So that's it for the categories. Again, you can see in green, look, 23 and 24 are there for actuals to show where we've been in the past. 25 is in two parts. It's what was voted a year ago, or actually not a year ago. Yes, a year ago, but also amended at the fall town meeting. And then year to date is again halfway through the year, December 31st. And then I want to talk a little bit about the two categories in blue. The 2611 is the requested, and the other is the recommended, which is the budget that we're going to be bringing to you tonight. So let me talk about the requests that are in that column. Department heads, it's explained a little below on the lines. I tried to get a lot of information in, but doesn't mean it makes it clear. So what the department heads were told was to provide your requested budgets based on current level staffing. Don't add any new positions, and don't be adding new programs and new ideas and ventures that you would like to do. There'll be an opportunity to do that. Please do that underneath your budget. Put your additional requests and what you would like to be doing. So if you your department needs two more people, two more personnel, then that would be listed down below along with a price, so that we had a sense not only of what they needed to continue business as it is now, but what would these department heads like to see from their departments going forward. And I think that was I think you're gonna find that useful information, especially when you actually talk to the departments. But for budgeting purposes, going back to what we said, current staffing, current programming, current staffing does include the raises that were already known. That's about it. So I wanted to show that the request total $24,316,376 on that basis. That is a request increase total of just over $2.3 million. If you remember back to the first slide, we had 850,000 or so in increased revenues. So this is not unusual in that we always have that kind of a gap. But what's happening each year is that gap is growing. And instead of saying, well, we'll deal with it next year, we deal with it next year, it's like we're not catching up with this. Maybe what are we going to do about it? Or maybe we're going to change the way we do business, or we're going to change to look at something about how we fund it. But anyways, that's where we are. Budget reductions in order to get to the recommended amount were $1,009,888 off of the requests. So then you go to the bottom line, you've got that repeat it again. What are the unfunded requests? $1,009,888. Then we have what I was talking about, that additional amount in red, additional unfunded requests, which is added staffing, added programs. We can do better if we have more shifts. And this includes a large part of that includes, and we've talked in it will be part of our future discussions on the budget too, that includes the ambulance and fire, which is fire departments, which is including increased staffing over the years, and that will continue. So the complete unfunded requests, if we want to look at it that way, are the 1 million and the 1.2 million, almost about $2.2 million. And boy, if we, it would be great if we had that, basically. But we don't, and we do have a workable budget for the time being under the recommended column, which is $23,306,488. The increase from 25 to 26, there is 1 million, that last column, $1,339,572. Once again, that's more than that 850,000 or so increase in revenues. So then we move on to the next slide. Balancing the budgets. Okay, the top block down to that solid black line shows the revenues to expenses. So our blue columns just jump right to the blue one. The revenues projected for this year are $21,721,064, which is an increase of $825,000. Now the budget I set out a little bit differently because we've been talking about the budget a little differently this year because we have two new, one primarily, but then really two sources of additional programming that have come in. So if we use the same budget, departmental budgets that we had for 25, for FY25, I call it their mainstream budgeted items as per prior years, they would be $22,567,800. This year, we're moving the ambulance services budget into the main budget. So look at the orange then. So this is new, $642,904 to bring the ambulance in under the general fund budget. And the next line after that is our use of the opioid settlement funds, programs related to that. We can only use it for that purpose. So it's $95,000, bringing the total budget $23,306,488. The shortfall in blue, and that last figure in the first lot was $1,585,024. So the shortfall there is $514,343, and that's where we're looking to our other sources to balance the budget.
Linda, before you get.
Sure.
The funding sources. Just wanted to ask a clarifying question. So the ambulance service new to budget, that figure represents current staffing levels.
It was the same criteria as all department heads.
I just wanted
So
to-
everybody, I know that we're, the plan has been for that to be in a growth and towards a certain goal, but, we applied the same, standard to every department. How do you continue your services that are being provided with the staffing that you have right now into the next year? And, if there were, and then that would be then discussed separately.
And we're calling it ambulance, but it's really hybrid, if I can put it that way. It's ambulance, but these are firefighters.
It is the portion of, there are individuals, I think many of them are in both the fire and the ambulance budget, as in they're paid, not paid twice, they're paid partially from each. The part that is in the fire budget is in that mainstream budgeted figure. The part of, the portion of that, of those people's salaries that are in the ambulance budget are shown in the ambulance service.
Yeah, I would estimate probably 3, 4 personnel are included within that number, and the rest are expenses. Can't be sure exactly. But yeah, that's a good goal. Personnel, and expenses. And also, does that also include,
Mike's there.
Mike, does that also?
They have the $180,000 contract in that as well. But that budget reflects one full-time, our firefighter, medic, EMS coordinator is the one employee that's paid fully out of that budget. So his full budget, his full salary is under that. And then the other employees, basically it's split between fire and EMS.
The, to clarify, because you, the actually ambulance was mentioned, actually ambulance is not in the orange highlighted figure. Only new information, because we paid it the year before and the year before. Action ambulance has been in the budget. So they are up in the primary, what I call mainstream budget. Even though 180,000 action ambulance is in the ambulance budget, I split what was a portion to new services and what was a continuation of services. Yeah, Mike and I talked about that. So we're set on that. So how do we feel that take care of that gap of 514,000? The second block there is transfers from other funds. As you can, the top line in transfers from other funds is free cash. This is nothing new to us. We've been using free cash to balance the budget for the past few years. We've been on attempting to move that amount down each year. We got some help in moving it down this year because we didn't have as much this year. So the amount being that is used for free cash on that top line is actually down to $173,409. Unfortunately, what that does is diminish the $825,000 in additional revenues that we have, because we have been using free cash. The fact that we're using less free cash is actually a decrease in the funds available. So it's a little counterintuitive, but it's there. It's annoying, and we all would like to get to the point where we weren't using free cash, and that when we see an increase in our income, we could be using it. But one thing to explain about free cash, it comes from somewhere. Our free cash is last year's revenue that was beyond our projections. So it is revenue. It's our revenue. We just didn't capture it in that way. It would be nice to be able to segregate it and send it off to other purposes like capital. But it is a combination of the revenue beyond what we projected, and also the budgets that were not, their rollbacks from budgets that were not. So we have accumulated that free cash out of the budget process of the prior year, so we're recycling it. Okay, so the next line, because our free cash was pretty low, and we just weren't gonna get anywhere with that amount, we did look into the 25 budget. So what, Mike and I had a lengthy discussion, I think we talked about it once before, about OPEB, but maybe it's time we stop funding OPEB for a little while. We were perfectly, it was perfectly well supported by him and taking a few years off of paying what would have been 200,000 this year into OPEB. That's other post-employment benefits for those listening. It is contributing to our unfunded liability, which we've been doing a good job with, kind of about 3/4 of the Massachusetts municipalities in funding that budget, and we can take a few years off without making new contributions, but it is still growing for us because we already have put so much money in. So we're still going to see growth in over the next few years. So we're pausing contributions, but hopefully with the economy going in the right direction, we will still be. So we're pulling money back. Not only are we not going to be funding OPEB this year, but I had not begun making the contributions for 25, as I say, this year. We're not going to fund it for 26. And then for 25, we had funded it. But we're going to put that in as a class year also. Change our minds on that one and pull that money back and redirect that portion of the 25 budget into 26, where we can make more concrete use of it with the meeting other department needs.
How does that work? Does that have to go on the warrant? I mean, because it was voted on through everything and then voted at town meetings. How do we make changes to
Yeah.
budgets after?
Well, it's an article basically, and we have a process for redirecting our articles. Repurposing the articles that have been approved with funding. So we do it in capital. About once a year, we redirect something that was voted for a capital purpose, we'll vote it for a different purpose.
So it's gonna
Have I
be
personally seen this before? No, but it's like a good idea. I don't know why we shouldn't be able to do it. I mean, we've already voted this money for one purpose and we just want to do a little corrective. We wanted to go this way instead. So I think it's good. So
So does it go with the free cash at that point, and then we?
I'm gonna grab it before it goes into.
You're
free
just gonna
cash.
put it right into whatever. Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. That would be the other way to do it, Paul, if we could pass
Right.
a budget without
Right.
needing it, then
Right.
that'd be great, but our budget will
We just
come up
voted it,
short.
Right, okay.
And then we have to be looking to other places to take the money from. And believe me, we'll go from departments that we take. Let's see, so if we can redirect that, when we call, that's 160,000 we retrieve into the budget, and I'm just putting it, I'm just saying we're doing that. And we will, we'll get the little pieces lined up before. Now, the other three areas that we're borrowing from will line up with the orange budget portions. We're using special revenue, the ambulance fee, the ambulance is collecting fees. So we're gonna take that and they're going into a special revenue, special ambulance reserved fund. So we're gonna take 90,000 from that to supplement the ambulance. We're going to use the opioid settlement funds, a direct pay of the full amount of 95,735. And then we would use stabilization funds to balance the rest of the ambulance budget. And that is how we close that gap in our balance the 26 budget.
So just for clarification, you're presenting a balanced budget. This is not a recommendation. This is for discussion.
Well, yeah, well, this is our recommendation, then it goes to select board and finance committee. This is the first stage. And we will pass this along for your continued use. In fact, this is actually our second budget because, and I really am very glad we did the first pass with you all about a month ago, because it did affect how we went forward. finance committee, through Amy, at least twice, was, we had had at one point that we will not fund the full health insurance in this budget. We're just gonna put it off, we'll figure it out, we'll use whatever free cash that we have and balance that budget in the fall, and, Amy has been quite adamant, and, being one of the people who helped start this policy, I completely understand that we work very hard to balance at our spring, town meeting, the full balance for the year, for the following year. We have to balance it with money that we have or money that we are legitimately expecting through revenues. And, she expressed that her concern that putting off $210,000 to the fall town meeting was a way of using future free cash and not the free cash that we already had on hand. So we wrestled with that one over the past week. And we have balanced it in a couple of ways. There, just, oops, my.
No, I'm doing it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I
Um,
forgot that you were.
Okay. We went back to HR and Lauren and I discussed it and went through the numbers again and thought that there was a full justification for cutting the figure down by $100,000. That when it was come up with, the staffing was at a higher level, the usage was at a higher level, and we went through and did some revisions, and we feel responsibly justified in saying that $1,830,000 is a good estimate, rather than $1,930,000. There is a swing in there. There always could be a swing. There have been years when we had a lot left over, and I don't remember any years, maybe one where we came up just a bit short in health insurance. It's very difficult to predict a year in advance, but it looked like it was a responsible decision to reduce it by 100. That still left 110. We then prevailed upon a few departments to cut their budgets again with the trade-off, or with the true intention that they will be a priority item for the fall, which isn't quite the same as what we were doing when we had a known amount that we were putting off. We're saying we can't guarantee it will be there, but when if we have extra money to put into the budget in the fall, you will be a priority. And we're grateful to, I hope, I don't know, everyone's actually said yes, but I mean,
No one except for me.
we did it, it's in the budget, and we've made additional cuts to school, and police,
Fire. DPW.
highway, and the finance committee's reserve funds. So we did our best, and I think that it needs it's a difficult budget this year, but I think that probably was the best thing that we could do. And again, you will see details of it.
The money amount is the same, but it was a trade-off between the definition of a priority and the definition of a requirement, right? We had to guarantee that we can cover those insurance costs, and against free cash, we have to make that guarantee. Making these departments that we had to make the second round of cuts from a priority doesn't necessarily guarantee the money to go back. So we made sure that we paid the insurance, because it has to be done. And the other things we make them a priority. We can get it back into their budgets.
What's the stabilization fund balance?
I thought it was two. I thought it was two.
After the last transfer, dropped to
Well, we are at
1.7.
1.7 million.
Yeah. The budget books, when you get them, they're so full of it.
it's higher than I expected. We must have done very well with our interest income.
Yes. Yes, we have them.
4 to 5%.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, because we were only at 2 and we took 350 plus.
Yeah, we
more
had-
earlier, so.
We were almost up at 2.1,
That was what I was thinking. And we made the last.
then we went.
So we would be using about 30%. A third of the stabilization fund,
It would still be over 1 million, but it would be more like 1.2 would be left.
but yeah, 33% of the fund would be this for this year.
And that's 1.2 on a $22 million budget.
We'd have 7%, 8%,
5%.
5%. Well, yeah,
Linda, can I put in my advance request for electronic copy of the budget book?
And you, oh, yes, you will have the other, I knew you would, I don't know. Anyone can, we are going to print, yes. It will be available for everyone electronically. In fact, we'll send it out and then give you the option of coming in and picking up a hard copy.
We were gonna have it ready for tonight, but we knew nobody would listen to us. You all.
Yeah, look at the top of your heads, because
We know it's.
Watch the previous meeting.
Mike sent me some text message to the effect of, he couldn't put it down, or he couldn't stop reading it, he said, I went, wow.
So can I just play on so if we were to take 500 more out of the stabilization and drop us down to 5%. What's that setting ourselves up for?
It's not, that's where we get into the philosophical.
Right,
It's not,
right.
Because we're just been chipping further and further.
We're kicking the can. We've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably risking our bond rating too.
we already are.
Oh, lots of
But it's not,
things to
so-
discuss. This is the last slide. This is where it goes, okay, so we have some money, where did it go, who got funded? Okay, this is. There's 3 sections, one is the fixed budget increases that we have little control over. Next are what we would consider normal, like. Increases to the budget. And then the third are, again, I'm separating out those specially funded ones because they may need to be discussed separately. But going back to the top, so we have 288,000, which now does include the health insurance. It may not seem all that high, but you need to remember, we're not doing the 200 for OPEB. If we were doing the 200 for OPEB, that would be 288,000, and that's 2/3 of the budget, meaning we really would have nothing left to fund any departments, especially since we have salary increase. So that, by pausing OPEB, we brought that back down into, sort of beating it back down to some normalcy. But, I don't know what that means for the following year.
That interest, did you do any additional increases or is it just the number? Because for a while we were adding extra 100,000.
The 200,000 was what was slated to be this year's increase to it. So last year was 190, 26 was supposed to be 200. So if it had been on our schedule, that would be 200 in addition.
We're going up 10 a year.
No, not OPEB, I'm not talking about the debt and interest. For a
Oh,
while, we
the
were
debt and interest.
increasing the debt
Yeah, we
and
did not
interest.
have any debt exclusion.
But I mean, we are
Yes, I know.
increasing it so that we could borrow more. during
That's all
the
been
pandemic.
done.
You're done.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all been done. The 9,000 is just
That's the number.
I mean, it would be, I mean, that is a cut, I think I figure out, except that. What I was trying to do is continue what we were already paying, but at a higher interest rate, so that basically is a little bit more interest which needs to be paid. There is $9,000 worth of flexibility in that line. I don't think that's still being pretty good budget. Thank you. The school budget, you'll see the increase.
Sorry, but just before we get there, David, did you have a question on the first A and B?
No, it was actually for the ambulance I had a question about, so I guess we can wait till we get down there.
So I do have a question about A. So OPEB's not in there. The insurance, we know everybody got slammed, double-digit increases, right? For the retirement, for the retirement contribution, has that calculation taken into account current salaries? Or is there a lag?
I'm sorry, could you say that? Look at this one.
So for the retirement funding,
Oh,
right, so like
It's-
Elmer comes and he does the OPEB whatever, so for the on the retirement side, the funding for that liability is. Is that taking into account, because obviously we had the wage study and then everybody got, not everybody, there were some. Townwide, there were some significant pay increases.
It's
Is that
based on,
built into that? or
it's
is
based
there-
on our actual assessment. We receive a figure each year that HR submits all of that information to them and this is your amount. So it's a year behind. So it's not a calculation that we would do based on all of that, but it will show up when we submit actual figures next year. And if there is an increase by reason of changes that happened this year, we would see them next year. We would see increases anyways. And also is somewhat proportionate, it's not directly related to those increases. It's we're part of a pool that if we made more increases than others, well, our proportion will go up. If we made others got ahead of us, yeah, so it's a expensive equation. I rely
I'm
on.
not sure the point you were trying to make, but I think I know where you were going with it. That is that calculation is not going to be accurate as we move through this fiscal year, because we still have to calculate those raises plus what is happening now for contract negotiations. So
Yeah, I'm worried about that number,
yeah,
getting even bigger in the
Yeah.
future.
So that liability will be growing.
Yes,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
but we're also at the same time, in the retirement figure, we are paying a portion of the Hampshire County Retirement Groups, all of our, which we are part of, their unfunded liability, just like our OPEB. They have an unfunded liability going forward in the retirement. So that was, when was that done? I think it was over a 30-year period, so at least 10 years ago. They went through and started and had a plan for paying off the unfunded liability over a certain number of years, which seemed really far away, but it actually ends in, I think, 34. But we're getting there. So a portion of what we pay in retirement is for that unfunded liability. So technically, even though that portion of it, the current portion of it is growing, our unfunded liability is going to drop. Years. And that's at that point, we would like to redirect more of it into OPEB to take care of that unfunded liability. We'd probably claim some of it back, not do it all, but then when we take them, we're sort of taking care of these things in sequential order to lighten the burden on us. So. Okay, so regular departments that got additional, that got raises this year, not much of an $8 million budget, school, 105,000. It's not even, just.
0.013.
Yeah. It's, and they only asked for 235,000. So we took 100, which they, we requested $100,000, which went through relatively, they were very cooperative, of course. And then this past week in trying to deal with with taking care of the insurance, we did ask for another $30,000, which we would hope to restore to their budget in the fall. In making these last rounds of cuts, $100,000, we wanted to make sure each of the departments that we talked with stuck with the policy that we're not layoffs and you're not making cuts in something that you know was an obligation on the contract that has to be paid or something. Don't just wing it and take 30,000, 10 or 30,000 off something and hope that you get the money back. It had to be a legitimate cut. And so we're hoping that that will work out. But then again, we go to a lot of non-departments, saw the listing of the $260,000 was there. And much of that, I would say, all of it is probably net wise, let's see, most of it is due to wage increases.
Yeah, it's what Linda said, what we're trying to do is retain at this point. It's just. That's I think it's a 0.052% increase, and that's across. Take school out, it's across 6 different 6 different budget groupings. It's bare bones, it's to keep who they have and pay whatever increases they were required to have for FY 26 or 25.
On the last section of it, we're going back to the ambulance now, we would. They can find them up there. Those separate lines. And that's how we met, that's how we have increases of 1,039,000.
So on the ambulance, that's only for BLS, not including action, correct? And what were our BLS ambulance receipts that were collected during the last year? Do we have any of that information?
We're using, the $90,000 that we have available right now are collections that began last March. So that is 9 months plus 2, that is almost a year's worth.
So
Of
90,000.
collections, so $90,000 a year is what we have been collecting. So it varies, some months it's been 7, some months it's been 13, so we just look.
So I just think we need to take a look at that because I don't see how that ever turns profitable the way we talked about at that.
Well,
Programs were.
I think it was to bring in the ALS revenue that was going to turn the,
But even then, with the increased expenses to operate the ALS, I don't
it's
see.
still not profitable.
Yeah, I just don't see any way that it shakes out. So I think we need to maybe devote a meeting to talking about that. So, okay.
Is that ambulance fund something totally new, or is it moved from a different place in the budget last year?
It wasn't in, we've been funding it by article. We've had separate articles in the warrant. When we kicked it off in the middle of 24,
Stabilization.
we did free cash for the first couple of rounds. Stabilization, we only took from for the first time at annual.
The last one. So that's status quo. That is to keep the personnel he has right now, and continue to operate as he is currently. And that number is not without utilizing the stabilization, that number is not accounted for anywhere within the budget. We're trying to work it in with what we're trying to put together.
Okay,
So
thanks.
Molly's statement earlier about presenting a balanced budget, but some decisions need to be made is very accurate. That's really kind of where we're headed with this. Jennifer, can you go back 2 slides? Oh, I'm sorry. Right there.
Oh, she did it.
So, this is where, like I said, we go from mechanical to philosophical. Ultimately, what this budget represents is a level service budget from a personnel standpoint. There's nothing additional. We did manipulate some jobs that are currently exist and, cut some down so that we could put, more hours into more appropriate places, but the low hanging fruit was unfortunately everyone's new positions, added hours and new projects, like as Linda mentioned. So you have a level service personnel budget. What the rest of that number represents is a level funded expense portion of your budget. And as Linda put within the budget book that you'll get at the end of the week, not in all cases is it even level funded. There's a lot of cases, a lot of parts, a lot of departments, and certainly a lot of lines within departments which are underfunded. And so ultimately, we as a town will not make it through all of FY 26 with a balanced budget like you see today. We cannot sustain. And there's not enough places to cut further, which will close the gap that we need to close. And
without touching people.
even if you touch people, I mean, you would have to cut so many people to close a gap that wide that you would change the philosophy of services within this town. And even then, that only resolves FY 26. There is no plan moving forward after that if you were to make a move like that. So this budget here, in my opinion, and I don't want to speak for Linda, but we've had conversations which have danced around the subject. A much more dynamic approach, in my opinion, is required to close the gap. And we certainly wouldn't be putting a number in front of you that includes additional personnel, additional services. Because I don't think that would be responsible, especially considering the numbers that we're looking at, but that the budget, the unfunded requests, that 1,009,888. That's the gap right there, and that is, you know, the cable bills and the phone bills and the electric bills, which we have slashed and burned throughout the entirety of everyone's budget. The 1.155, that's your additional individuals, and the important one within there is your ambulance personnel, your ambulance situation, which again, another part of this budget, which we need some discussion and some direction. So as you work your way through the budget book, for both boards and committees here, as well as the public who would, you know, will be able to look at this very soon. The red numbers that Linda has put at the bottom of each budget represents the additional items. But I urge you to, you know, really focus on the budget reduction number, the unfunded requests, because not only do I not think we will make it through FY 26 with a balanced budget, but that number does not include anything that's being negotiated with the 8 of the 9 unions that are that exist in this union. So add whatever that figure is to that number. That's kind of the long and the short of it, and you know, as we talked, like you said, the mechanics, we've done the best that we can with the numbers that we have in front of us. But some decisions need to be made as to how do we move forward. Ultimately, what has been happening, and if when you read Linda's description of the FY 26 budget, she paints an excellent picture of what it looks like, and essentially what it comes down to is our expenses have been slowly and gradually. I'm sorry, take that back. Our revenues have been slowly and continuously increasing. Our expenses have been jumping in leaps and bounds. It has been climbing away from us for I don't know how long. I haven't been in this position long, but it has been climbing away from us, and we haven't been climbing at the same rate that it's been getting away from us. And the longer that we wait, the more it's going to hurt.
I just want to make sure. Going back to the personnel costs.
Yeah.
So in FY 26, you're saying that it's, you know, it's fairly common at this point in the budgeting process. So we might pick a number and say, okay, just apply a 3% across the board increase. That's a starting point. So you're saying that hasn't even been done.
So no, it has. We have calculated. No, so it's not as much. But what we did add, like you said, we did add a 3% number or something along those lines. What we haven't added is what's happening right now. So we're probably halfway there. Exactly. So the number's not as large as you would imagine.
Make sure we weren't starting.
Nope, we're not starting from scratch.
Which we have in some years, but this year it's in there. Once again, we've accumulated and pulled it all into the board's budget, rather than applying it across the board and then applying again. So we have a figure based on the known percentage increase of most of it, but a big note to the select board budget that you'll see.
But it's likely not.
But it's definitely,
You've got new negotiating, we don't have.
Do we have that 1,988,888? Do we have it broken down in terms of like
specifics from each budget.
not reduction, specifically what they were used, what they were going to be used for? Like, is it?
Yes.
Yep.
Like, is it
It's within each-
personnel?
Yep.
Is it,
within
is
each-
it for?
Yep.
You'll have,
I assume that honestly, when each department had requests to come before you, or you asked to sit with them, they'll go through all of that, because we've heard it. So they'll be sure to tell you what they're not gonna be able to make it, what portions are not gonna be able to make. Jennifer,
Does
is
Annie have
still
her
on?
hand up?
Yeah.
I can't see. Are we, can I take
Yeah.
my screen back?
She said, she texted me and said she had a meeting at 7. She did raise her hand. Right. Still there.
It looks like she might be gone. Sorry, I didn't have control of my screen,
That's
so I
okay.
didn't see it.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Annie, but I did have a conversation with her about the reductions that we made, and as Linda mentioned, the requests from the school have been really reasonable over the course of the last several years, and this year is no exception. We actually expected it to be kind of a catch-up year for them. We've been taking care of the town for X amount of years, and now we've fallen behind, but still, the request, in my opinion, is a pittance of what it could have been, and we still had to make a significant reduction to her request, and ultimately, she is not only concerned about operations, you know, with expenses and things like that, but she's worried about personnel as well. So that's kind of where we're at. We put this budget together with the intention of salvaging human beings at the expense of.
and if I could add to that, because I've been on I know that you can balance some of the layoffs or whatever and balance the budget. That it's not just a matter of not wanting to hurt employees and lay anyone off. It's also, it really comes down to, I think, in the number of years I've been looking at these budgets, that we have a certain expectation, the town has a certain expectation of what they want in services from town hall and from the other programs that we have. They've been very supportive of them. That's why we have the buildings to house these programs. There is an expectation, and that's where we get to what Mike was mentioning, the philosophical part of it. You know, we don't want to lay people off, have them without jobs and not paying their taxes and not contributing or moving away. We want to keep the staff that we have. It's also, I see it, I think we really have what is the basic staff for doing the job that the town expects to be done. If there were to be reductions in staff, and I don't really see it as necessary at this point, but just looking ahead so that when we do make decisions about budgets, that we're doing it thoughtfully. So let's call this a year out. When we do consider reductions, because we are so, what we feel as leanly staffed, it will involve changes in those expectations. And that's where we get to the philosophical part. What is it that we want? Now, if we continue, for example, at town hall, continue to add responsibilities, have fewer people doing more things, it will have to involve cutting back hours of town hall. When I work on these budgets, I work weekends. I went in this weekend, it was great, nobody's bothering. I can get so much more done in a day without anyone coming to the door. I'm sure it's that way for everybody. So if you want more work from fewer people, you have to have fewer hours available to the public. And so it will start coming down to what are we going to do differently? There's a high level of personal retention, people that walk into the select board's office, people that come into our office and we drop everything and try to figure out what their problem is, get them in the right direction. This is the kind of relationship I think that we have between our residents in town, and this will change. And So I want it to be, it's, when we make decisions about how we go forward. If it's going to be, if its intention is going to be on spending less in the budget, then we all have to agree on, then what is it that we want to change about what is being done right now? Because we need the staff that we have right now to do the work that we have in us.
I think we should need, and it may already be too late for this budget, but we need to look at automating a lot of things and contracting things out that we currently do in-house. That sucks up a lot of people's time. And, you know, there's payroll, things like that, that we're still doing via spreadsheet versus other options and, you know, lock boxes, things like that, that we could be doing. I think
To a point.
it might be too late for this budget to get something like that in place at this point. I don't know. What it takes to implement things, but any cost savings, I think we need to look at.
And David, I completely, I mean, you and I have had a lot of conversations about the automation and you know, embracing more technology. But the challenge is in order to get from point A to point B, you need the people to actually
Right.
make the decision and adopt the new technology. And I think the savings on that end is then people can redirect their time, right? So instead of doing more kind of repetitive menial things, you let the software do that, and then now you're doing something else, so we can work smarter going forward. But you're right, it's not. I don't know, it's right now.
If I may, I think what would mean we wouldn't have to hire additional staff as
Exactly.
soon.
It
So
saves
it would
on-
put off hiring new staff. I don't know that it would necessarily mean that you now safely let someone go because the workload is more different to me.
I agree with that 100%. That's what I was thinking of. Everybody was talking, yeah, we can automate, but we still need people to fill the spaces. And just because somebody has a software program to do their work for them and they can do something else, they're still going to be paid the same amount of money they're getting paid. But maybe they can get more work done, but I don't see how it's gonna impact the payroll budget at all.
So I guess what's the next step is meeting with department heads and trying to come up with potential savings? Is that where we're at this point, or?
Well, each one of the department heads will likely be going for finance committee and before the select board to kind of have a discussion. But what that discussion is likely to be, which we have been told directly, is I can't operate my budget with what they've cut from me. So it's not going to be, hey, I can help out by cutting this, this, and this. It's going to be, I can't run my department with what they did. So it's more of an appeal to each. Ultimately, what it comes down to from the seat that I'm in right now is, as I mentioned earlier, we need to find a way to bring more money in. And as I mentioned last time, I don't say the word, but yeah, it goes back, yeah. I know.
Gotta find another way other than an override, because I don't think that's gonna fly. And if we are banking on that, I think we're gonna be in big trouble.
I'm not necessarily saying we're banking on it, but ultimately what the decisions made at this table. What is going to happen is this, if you were to discuss an override, say, build an override budget for fall. You have enough money in your budget with the balanced budget, you have enough money in your budget to keep the employees you have, we can get it through to, when is fall time meeting, October? So we pushed it to, yeah, so you can make it to October without a problem.
But we'd have to use stabilization.
Well, it depends on what you want to do with the ambulance, because that's your unfunded portion of the budget, so you'd have to decide on that as well.
Well, half of that is the fire department.
Yes,
That's saying it's.
So you can't really say you can't have the fire department. So a good chunk of that is the fire.
Yeah,
Meaning
so
we
that
gotta-
needs to be, well, that's kind of step number one, because that's kind of hanging out to the side. It's not covered. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that we would, you could build a override budget for fall town meeting. And if it fails, then you have to, but we don't have a way to, we don't have a way to cover what the override is for. What things need to be cut, like entire departments, personnel. This is where you change the philosophy of the town. And as I mentioned earlier, if that were to happen, I don't know what FY 27 is. Because everything is going to continue, your expenses are going to continue to increase. And you have cut just enough to get through 26. So that's the ultimate, that's kind of the end game of what we're looking at here. And I know, like you said, override's not gonna pass. I understand, but other than continuing to use stabilization until it's gone, to balance things, I don't see a solution. Can't wait for a gigantic business to move into town to help publishing some of this deficit.
Well, if anything where we're at right now, you know, and unfortunately, there's a lot of uncertainty, you know, about what the future is gonna bring in terms of, you know, grant cuts that are gonna impact schools, that maybe we get a lot of little pockets of grant money. I mean, I was thinking about the schools being bigger dollars, but, you know, we just getting grants, fire department gets grants. Seeing where that's gonna wind up, you know, we saw the headline about Fish and Wildlife.
That's in a private building, right? That's a
It
rented building and they
refers to a lease, yeah.
it's a
it's a lease, so
Yeah.
that means that's gonna affect our valuation on that building. It's a,
And, you know, Pins just shut
Yep,
down.
Pins
at the
just shut
mall,
down.
So that's licensing revenue that's moving. If people start pulling in, I mean, what we're already seeing is consumer confidence is trending down, which means people are going to spend less, and discretionary spending is hotels. I mean, you can keep playing this out, and I mean, I hope that that's not where we're at, you know, a year from now, and we're looking back and saying, oh, that didn't pan out that well. So, but that's real, like, data that's building day by day here that we have to take into account. Which, putting the personal taxpayer hat on and business owner hat on, well, of course, nobody's gonna want to see their taxes go up while that's happening either. I mean, it's a really bad environment.
and that doesn't account for also loss of federal contracts to anybody in our area. That they either contract with directly or they're a subcontractor or federal contractor.
Yep.
Who's just gotten canceled. There's some ripple effects there, travel to the area, which is going to receipts.
University employees.
This is like a huge storm, economic storm for the next.
But the other issue is, at the same time, if you talk about that increase. You're talking, we're at the same time, we're looking at the DPW. And we don't even know how that's gonna affect the taxpayer yet. I'm not sure of
In the building.
the building, what that number is gonna be. So you're gonna add the regular increase, the general operating account increase, the DPW increase, that increase is going to be enormous.
Or we make a very difficult decision and postpone.
I really think, I know we're just opening the warrant tonight, but I don't think we should be pursuing any capital items. This.
Not of that magnitude.
No.
Well, the problem is this, I think we need to be realistic, because just because we don't do it right now, that's still, if we're doing this increase. And then you just push that to the fall, and then you add that increase on, it's still, you're adding the two things together, it's still there. It might not show at one town meeting.
Right.
But it's still an enormous increase for a taxpayer.
I'm just saying right now, I mean, in my mind, the calculus is. If we're talking cutting, because we're not going for additional revenue, right? we're talking people. So are we comfortable going forward with a new building at the same time that we're?
I'm not saying at the same time, but we need to tell, I mean, we have to be out and open. This is what we're looking at. So this is the total increase. Might not be, okay, so we do a little bit today, this town meeting and some next time. It's still gonna affect.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying, project out for people, like this is coming down the road.
Well, yeah, just because we say, oh, don't worry, you know, we're gonna take it off, so it's only this, and you know you're gonna hit them up for this.
Right.
In a meeting or two.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was
no,
talking,
agree with that.
I was talking about capital more along the lines of, I know we were looking at solar projects and we were looking at geothermal and things like that. And although they may have great paybacks, I think the costs to the taxpayers to implement those programs at this time, it's just not the right time. So some of that stuff may have to wait a bit, some of the remodels that we were looking at and things like that. I think all that kind of stuff.
We've actually already prepared several architects to make the first round of cuts that we'll expect. Those type of ticket items at the fall. It's just not, again, you know, I hate to say, it's kind of a corny phrase, but it's slow hanging fruit, that's easy, right? It's spit and glue time, you know what I mean? Keep the bumper of the cruiser on, it's duct tape, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, no, I'm on the DPW building committee, and there's a bunch of issues that we're discussing that we are very deficient in right now, and we all kinds of regulatory agencies coming down on us, so we gotta be cognizant of that. And then the other thing that we had a meeting earlier today, we were discussing, town meeting gave $225,000 to get this building idea started with the promise that we would come back to town meeting with a building plan. And we believe that let the townspeople decide if they want to spend that money or not, because they asked to get to that point. So I don't know if it's fair that we make the decision to pull it from the warrant, but those are the thoughts that we had today.
I just think that we are in a position where every year we are facing a ratcheting up of certain expenses which we have no choice and no control over. I'm not saying they're wrong. People will be paid more, the raises, the cost of living's gone up. Our insurance costs have gone up. I think this town's been very frugal across the board. But these basic needs are going up every year, and we've been kicking the can down the road through use of free cash. Mostly we've had the fortunate position of having enough extra free cash to be able to use that as a safety valve to balance out our budget. But it is, in some respects, ill-advised as a long-term solution, and unfortunately, we're reaching the end of that wedge. We're getting closer and closer to the ever squeezed, the thin end of the wedge, as they say. And so I think we need to be very straightforward with the voters about the position that the town is in, and really let them understand what we're up against. This has not been easy year after year. I mean, you're seeing how tough it is, Linda, to keep the budget, to go back and try and find some more money or a way to reposition it somewhere. You spent a lot of time. Amy has gone in on her own time and helped with some ideas to reposition money, also to reposition it to set a precedent in the way we handle it also. But I think we're at a crisis point in my view. And I think that needs to be made clear to people that we don't really have a lot of options here. And we don't want to lose people who are trained and available and dedicated to our town. And I think our services are great. I think I look at the streets in one of our neighboring towns with the snow, and I look at our streets, and I'm very impressed by what we did. And I realize we have a lot of state highway area that helps that, but even our little streets, are clear. So I think we need to get some messaging out ahead of town meeting at some point to let people know in advance, to educate people. Maybe it's a letter, maybe it's a local meeting, maybe it's encouraging more people to come and just listen to a statement from us. you know, prepare them better to let them know what's at stake here.
Well, I think Mike said it best, that this is a philosophical question about our town. Like, what do we want from our town in terms of services, in terms of buildings, in terms of, yeah, getting our streets cleaned, grass cut, schools, all of that stuff. And whether or not we want to go and financially back those services, or do we want to roll those services back and reduce our expenses? Like, it's pretty straightforward in my eyes, that we have to decide how we want to operate this town. Do we want these nice things that we have? They're gonna cost more money. Are we gonna pay for them? Or we're not gonna pay for them? And then that means maybe less police, less firemen, less people in town hall, shorter hours, less DPW, so that the streets don't get cleaned as fast, less equipment, less teachers in school where class sizes increase. I think those are the options that we have to understand, is that we're not gonna be able to sustain this level of service at the budgets that we're having.
And that's just sustained, it's not making it any better.
Right.
I just think that when we come to the warrant and big expenditures, you know, if we're gonna go out there and ask for, let's say, a $2 million override, right? So get us through 27. And then if we decide, hey, we're gonna go for the whole DPW at the time, another $20 million on top of that, $600 a year for the average household. Plus that override, plus any other capital projects. I think that big of an ask at the town meeting is gonna put all of those at risk, and you're gonna have the people that show up and say, I'm voting no on everything because I'm not risking having my taxes go up that much. So whether we scale back and make a smaller ask and do it in stages for the DPW, or whether we, you know, prioritize an override, or we just really have to prioritize, because if we ask for too much, we're getting nothing, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, but to Randy's point, this is not it might not be a thing that we want. It might be something that might be forced upon us if it's a regulatory compliance issue.
Sure.
I think that's what is really hanging over our head, and
Yeah.
I think we're probably not even in compliance as we speak.
That is
So
correct.
it might be something that, whether or not we like it or not, it has to get done.
Right, and one of the things about the building is there's a wash bay proposed, which is, I don't know how much it costs, but it's money. And we can cut that out, but if we do that, tomorrow DEP comes down and says, oh, by the way, you can't wash your trucks outside anymore. We're in violation right now, I believe. So then they would mandate that we build this wash bay, which would add tremendously to the cost.
We're under
Unless-
pressure.
Yeah, and, you know, it would be way more to build it than if we incorporated it into the building originally. We were looking at trying to cut costs in the building, and it's just like we're all talking here. There's only so much you can do.
I think to Paul's point, Bill, messaging and communication to the public is super important. So I think it would be, to Paul's point and to David's point, I think it would be imperative that we drill down to the facts of exactly what we're kind of caught up on, because people are going to be asked. We don't understand, explain to me exactly what we can and can't do as far as these regulations. Because I think David's right. My first year as a chief, I went into the finance committee and I asked for 2 cruisers, capital committee. And justified all day long, did a whole PowerPoint board, everyone to tears, showed them our cruiser fleet. Everyone said, this is great. Yeah, absolutely. This is completely justified. But what I'm afraid of is you putting 2 cruisers in front of town meeting and getting none. So you know that if you ask for 1, you'll likely get it. So it's a very real concern. So, and you know, like what Amy said, we also don't want to fool people. We don't
We
wanna.
need 100% transparency with numbers
Exactly.
and tell
We need
people
to-
what
we
it's gonna
can't-
cost.
Exactly. Tell people what it's gonna cost. It cannot sneak up on them. There has to be plenty of messaging and communication. And they're gonna need to know, why are both of these items on here? You know what I mean? Why, I can understand why we would wanna make sure that the roads stay clean and, you know, have enough police and fire and everything else. But why are we putting a building on it if we don't have enough people to put into the building? Explain to me why we have to do that now. So I guess that's kind of where I'm going
Well,
with
and the
that.
other, and the other thing too, that we have to be conscious of, I think. Probably feeding to David's point about, you know, an override's not gonna pass, that we always say this, I mean, they're calling 250 people. Maybe it's 225, sometimes it's whatever, but I mean.
Right.
They're the same people who come to town meeting. You know, we've got 5,300 people living in town, and only 250 have been fairly regularly going to town meetings, kind of following the journey, if I can put it that way. There are gonna be thousands of people in town potentially saying. Did this just happen overnight? Right? How could you possibly have not seen this, come, right? I mean, so we can't catch people by surprise, and I'm just sitting here looking at the fact that it's March 5th. Town meeting's May 1st. I personally don't think we can do this well. Before annual town meeting, and I think we're likely looking at. Letting town meeting know clearly that we're coming back in the fall or prior to the fall meeting, actually, so we are looking at an override. And allowing ourselves plenty of time to bring people up to speed, explain, digest it. Maybe we'll have more clarity about the economy as well at that point, but
That's true. Maybe we'll have the increase in excise tax. Maybe we'll have a. Rate action. There's a number of things that will change between now and those. And we want improvement between now and then, but we don't want it after having said we need an override. That's how that's how our ones a few decades ago failed, is that we really needed it, and then. Turns out we didn't need it after all, because more money, whatever. So we have to, I think, really build that careful. I think we can talk about it at this moment. We've got too many things that are. Too many other decisions to take care of.
and it also might just buys enough time to implement some of these other. Efficiency measures we've been talking, and I know Lauren's working on the payroll now, but. Yeah, well, the lockbox and some of these other things make sense so that we can also. Be building that in to say, hey, coming out the other end of this, we're gonna be better, you know, than we have been.
I think those are very good conversations to have with each department. It is to talk about the automation, it is to talk about the real. What is your serious shortfall? I mean, everyone wants their full budget that they asked for, but where does, what do you? We absolutely need to get through 26 with this budget. Why will this budget work for you? Maybe it will. Maybe, I mean, this was intended to be a budget that would get everyone through 26. But if you can hear from department heads, I can't possibly. Well, why is that? Is there somewhere else? How you get to determine? I guess I'm trying to say you determine how the level of need, how urgent and how large, and that will inform where you go. You know, where we go next with it. And I think you need to get through that process first.
On the 19th, we will schedule the same type of meeting, 5-board meeting, and that meeting, the fire chief will be here. To talk about the ambulance, and hopefully it'll get up to one out.
March 19th.
March 19th, yeah, the very next 2 weeks, next select board meeting. And that'll hopefully give people some information, be able to ask some questions, and we can. You know, come to some terms and some decisions as to, you know, what that department is gonna look like. That's gonna help Linda and I. With the budget, really,
Not more impact the fire.
it's 100%, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
well,
Was
thanks for that.
Welcome.
2 weeks.
We always do the best we can.
Cool.
So Linda, will you be sending us, are all the items that you put online here, are they all in the budget book? The
Yes.
sheets?
They are.
Yep.
Okay,
They are.
I like this one.
You want me to send you the, I can send you the. Yes.
that'd be
Count
good.
the points.
Well, I would like to inform the other people, or they can watch too, but I'd like.
There's a Word doc, sure.
The PowerPoints on Word docs.
Oh, that's where it is?
Yep.
Okay, I know.
And,
What?
we'll have
8 million.
hard copy budget books for everyone, and we'll send it to you digitally. if you-
Okay.
or that down class.
Great.
Should be done. And then end of this week.
Yep, no, we just sent you that already.
Yeah, 3 pages. Thanks for all of the hard work. I know it's not easy sitting department heads and telling wonderful news, so.
No one pulled the ninth.
That's good, done.
One of the advantages of having you in the meeting is.
He's gotta get.
I think the reality is everybody's gotta take ownership for
They, you know what,
it's
they
part
do
of the,
understand.
being part of the town.
It was, I will say this, that it, as much of a. Awful process that it was, probably for Linda and I, with your department heads across the board, were phenomenal. The shared load that a lot of them are taking on is, inspiring. It's just, it really is, and some of them took some significant hits that I know they can't operate under those, with those numbers, but everyone recognized that we're, like Paul said, we're at critical mass right now.
Are you gonna keep your meeting going? Or are you gonna adjourn?
Well, we're gonna do.
Ready to go. Mike, that's
Get your note out so you can read it.
That's right, here it is.
Hit the red button.
First of all, thank you again. And thank you to the select board for having us here tonight. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the finance committee. Move.
First and second, so all in favor? Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming.
Good evening.
Sure will get those over 55s on
Appointment
next week.
point 1, the CPA committee. You see Mary Fair in the background there? Want to come on up, Mary?
At the table with the microphone.
Yeah, or do you want to take one of these microphones?
You come right up here.
Knock it out.
Should I wait for Jennifer or go right ahead?
No, I think you can just go right ahead. I would, yeah, just to.
So your fans can hear you.
That's right.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Mary Fair. I'm Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. We work with the Community Preservation Act funds. Our main priorities are to keep up to date with the CPA rules and practices and to encourage CPA applications. We want to make it easy for people to apply. We have a lot of information on the website. We have a thorough application form. Andy Morris Freeman is vice chair, and he's offered to work with anybody to help them understand what's needed. And any of the community members will do that as well. Then we evaluate CPA applications. First, do they qualify under the CPA Act, both the state and town bylaws? And is it a good fit for Hadley? And we want any applications to be successful. So we want to make sure that they have enough information so that if it is approved at town meeting, that they can start or put it out for bid. And we also want to make sure that the funding they're requesting seems appropriate. If the CPC votes to recommend an application by majority, then it gets put on warrant for the next town meeting. And it's the townspeople that decide how the CPA funds are spent. We are thrilled to have a part-time staff person starting in 2024. Kayla Lubrio is the land use coordinator. Part of her duties is to support the CPC, sorry. And she's been a great help. So that's made a big difference in what we can get done. Some of the things we've recently finished, Denise Barstow Mans, when she was on the committee, really attacked our application. It's much more thorough and gives the committee a lot more information that they need to make decisions on the applications. We have a much more extensive website page on the hadleyma.org. It's up to date, all the minutes, who's who, and a lot of links, including a frequently asked questions section we did with a lot of information on the EPA. We've had to figure out grant agreements and historic declaration with like Phelps project and bond options for Hopkins Fields. And we just on Monday's meeting approved revisions to the CPA bylaws. Of course, the town needs to finally complete it, but we've gone through it. And we also revised the Hadley CPA and the most freedom and recess with reads at the time, going through the one from 2018 and updating it. We approved it. Have a few final things to bring up on that, and yeah. And one thing Kayla's been great helping us with is to gather all the CPA records in one place, which is her office at Town Hall, instead of in barns and in basements and various past
That
chairs.
question was coming, so thank you.
Yeah, well, we've had 119 projects and we have all but 33 of the application. And they're all from before 2019. And we still have hopes somewhere in Town Hall to find some more of those. So that's where we're at.
Pretty good.
I do have a couple of slides just to bring you up to date. I looked at a lot of figures tonight. Go through. But then for the first one, if you could please. Make it nice and big. Thank you. So here's our current figures. We have our reserves, the open space recreation has 0 in it right now. Historic reserve has 0. Housing reserve has 308,000. The undesignated fund balance can be used in any of those 3, and only those 3. And that's $1,693,774. So we have a little over 2 million that are available for projects. We do have an addition in the fund 726,355 that is already been approved for projects in the process. And I'll go over those in 2 more slides. Just to look at the revenue additions, the town portions from the 3% surcharge that's added to the real estate taxes. First 100,000 of an assessment is exempt, and then there is a 3%. And the town's portion has been pretty consistent, growing a little each year. As values go up, the tax rate goes up, and new buildings get put on the tax rolls. This year we're at 211,000. It's probably about at least 140,000 still to be collected with the main real estate taxes and some of the government ones are reflected in the scenery. The state portion goes up and down, and that's certainly much harder to plan for. In 22 and 2023, there was a lot of refinancing, a lot of house sales, and this state portion is mostly funded by a $50 fee at the registry of deeds. And the state also put an extra 10 and 20 million in the fund those years. And that certainly hasn't been the case the last 2 years. Very few people are refinancing, and house sales are down. Hadley actually, the percentage at the bottom, the state match, that 43% is based on previous year, what the town collected. If towns and cities had less than 3%, they only got 18% match. And then because we're at 3%, we're at the second and third round. And very few towns got more than 43%, and all of those got less money. Much smaller towns, except one got a little more. So Hadley's done very well in the state match, and then we have earnings on investments from the fund. So this estimated total for this year will be about 565,000. So next slide is a quick look at the last 20 years. So the open space, historic, and housing reserve and undesignated are the same figures that we just saw. Those are current. The projects spent and in process so far have totaled $6,678,000. And then we've had 41,000 in the CPC administration expense and staff. 10,000 of that was for the CPA plan the first time around with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. About 8,000 plus has been for our staff person, and the rest mostly has gone for dues, to the Preservation Coalition statewide. That is a huge resource for us, and we definitely use their services. So the total is 8,000,007 over the 20 years, and of that, 57% has come from the town. 37% has come from the state. So the state has put in $3,200,000 that the residents have had to decide how to spend based within the CPA program. And we've had earnings and interest on the account as well. A quick look at that projects of 6,678,000, broken down by the categories. 36 projects within open space, and that has resulted in 1,376 acres being preserved, mostly through the APR program, which is 9% of the town, which is wonderful. Recreation has taken the biggest chunk of money. They've had 18 projects, 2,951,000. And of that, 2,146,000 was Hopkins Fields. 334,000 was spent in Turpin total, 333,000 the elementary school playground, and 8 billion. Historical has had a lot more projects, 58. A lot of times they're smaller dollar items. They're about 24% of the total. And cumulatively, the cemetery work has been 405,000 of that. And money spent on the town hall building or studies on the town hall building have been 329,000, including the residents. And then the housing has had 7 projects, all but one have been to Golden Court and Brooks Way, and then 100,000 was put into the housing trust. That's a quick look at where that 6,600,000 that's on. The last slide is where we are currently. So the first column is the project and then who sponsors it. Then the original amount of the grant was voted on at town meeting, and then what's outstanding at this point, what it was voted on, article number, when they have to use it by. So it's just kind of a quick summary of everything. The clock repair at 13,500. The clock has actually, because the First Foundation Church has been fixed for a few years. It's just that they don't want to put it up until the steeple is fixed, and the clockmaker is saying, "Don't pay me until I put it up." So it's going to go sit in the fund. The town hall pillars are done, and the final bill should be paid shortly, and apparently it's even under budget. The first church steeple repair, the 100,000 that was used is they actually need quite a bit more, and it came back to us with other applications that will be at the town meeting warrant. The Hockenham Cemetery is done. There's a little bit of money that was hoped to be used originally, and may still be for something to do with some of the stones from last time. It was taken down from the CCC project in the 1930s. The 4 signs for the Historical Commission. The signs are up, and they have an updated walking tour that should be printed by the summer. And then they're still working on their audio tour. That's all in process. They were to spend it. We put it to a now 3-year limit on funds just to keep things current. So they are asking for an extension at town meeting, moved by or recommended by the CPC. The Russell School study and the town hall exterior and the town hall space needs, I'll let Jennifer talk about later. The Phelps Farmhouse is in process. They're working on stabilizing the foundation. They have submitted some bills. They're still working their way through the system, like I said. And then the HES, the elementary school, put in place surface for the playground. They've been putting out bids to do the work in August. And then the Historical Commission Preservation Plan, they're hiring a consultant on Saturday to go around town, taking the van around and checking out the historical buildings and resources in town. And the consultant will help them prioritize where they put their energy. And there's a meeting at 1 o'clock at the First Foundational Church, and open meeting for the Historical Commission to hear from the consultant after this drive around town, and everyone, of course, is welcome to town. So that's a quick update on the And I certainly wanted to say again, thank you to so many people in town that have helped us with administration, town administration, the town clerk's office, the treasurer, and town accountant, and attorney at times. It has been wonderful to work with, very helpful. That's my report.
Very good report.
Outstanding.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Well, you're very welcome. We do have 5 new projects that we just recommended on Monday, about $600,000, and those will be on town plans.
Any other questions for Mary? Oh, okay.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
Next appointment, Human Resource Departmental update, Lauren.
It's been a long night so far. So I am Lauren Wilcox, HR Director and Project Coordinator for the town of Hadley. And I just came in late October of 24. So the overall history, the HR department was newly created about 4 years ago. Prior to that, most services were handled in the Treasury Department, benefits, onboarding, payroll. Since the creation of the HR department, there has been extensive turnover at the department level. And I believe this has contributed to kind of confusion in how HR integrates into the town structure. There has been no clear vision at the department head level on how to truly establish the department. So we service town employees, but also school employees in terms of benefits reporting, payroll processing, and so forth. We currently have 3 full-time positions, myself, a payroll and benefits manager, and an HR assistant. We have a vacancy in the HR assistant position. We recently hired for a new payroll and benefits manager with the retirement of Joan. And our payroll and benefits manager is undergoing training in the payroll processes, onboarding benefits, so forth. Since my arrival, we've hired for a new assessor, a building permit coordinator, a payroll and benefits manager, and a wastewater treatment plant operator, admits processing various appointments, transfers, and offboardings on the school side. There have also been other appointments such as assistant treasurer, assistant clerk, and finance director. We've also seen some recent retirements and from longstanding employees and resignations. So quite a bit of turnover. Our current vacancies, we have 6 full-time vacancies, 3 of which are in the DPW. I'm working with the DPW director and the union on some restructuring and ways we can recruit some qualified candidates for the vacancies. It's one of the more challenging departments to fill the vacancies for, just because of the licensing requirements and the cost the candidates have to bear in terms of obtaining those licenses and certifications. So my hopes are to get people in the door here soon. And I believe we're hopefully going to be posting with some changes and getting some qualified candidates through the door. The HR assistant position that's currently vacant, we've had to put hiring on hold for that. One of the early budget recommendations was to cut that position down to a part-time position. So I've got to do some restructuring in the department to try to make that happen for the future. We were just wrapping up interviews for the full-time position when that recommendation came down. So hopefully I'll be able to post and hire for that position in the coming weeks. We have a vacancy in the police department that's been posted on police app, Indeed, and our town website. So far, we've received quite a few applications. And I'll assist the PD in any help they need throughout the process. We have a part-time van driver vacancy at the COA. It's currently being covered by their backup van driver. And the position is currently posted on our website. Nikki and I, will likely be making a recommendation to fill the role shortly. And we may want to hire a backup driver just in case the person who may fill the role, you know, just in case of backup. We also have a part-time vacancy as the assessor's assistant. We had just posted this prior to our new assessor's arrival. Our hope was that when she came on board, she would be able to hire and get help in immediately. But in speaking with her, she decided to temporarily wait to get herself settled before she hired someone. So hopefully, when she comes to me, we will move forward with reposting and hiring for that position. We're planning on reaching out to the candidates that have applied to see if they're still interested. And then our last vacancy is the town administrator, in which the town has hired a contractor to assist with the recruitment of a qualified leader. I'll work with Community Paradigm as they see throughout the process. This position is currently posted on our town website. And all positions can be found under employment opportunities on the HR webpage. In addition to our website, we often post on Indeed, MMA if needed, social media, depending on the department, and other places like LinkedIn, and so forth. Upon my arrival and through some feedback from employees, I started sending emails when I do post a position to internal people. That way they know when positions are posted, if they're interested, they can follow the application process. That was kind of a area for improvement that they had provided to me. So it's great with being able to recruit our internal candidates, kind of meeting the requirements in our collective bargaining agreements with the town and unions, and it's just a good practice. So since I've come on board, I really focused on learning Hadley, structure, employees, and assessing the needs of the town in relation to HR. Compliance is notably one of the areas of focus to ensure our practices, policies, and so forth are up to date and in proper order. Some achievements since my arrival are working on projects such as the compensation study and personnel policy handbook update, rolling out employee self-service on both town and school sides to provide digital access to employees to their tax documents, pay stubs. So now as a result of this, we no longer have to send out paperwork, pay stubs to employees, and they can just log in to see their info. You like that, David?
Yeah, do. Thank you.
I've reworked part of the HR website to allow more access to information such as posting our union contracts, employee self-service, and I'll be making more updates as the months move forward. Implementing 2 one-year contracts with the fire department and municipal union. So that was insurance, retro pay, and other contractual obligations have been met. Also working through some challenges that occurred due to negotiated changes. So like fiscal versus calendar year that caused some issues in the HR department. Preparing for attending and leading union negotiations with 5 of the 6 town side unions. With the hopes to hopefully finalize prior to fiscal year 26, which would be wonderful. Handling personnel matters, building union relationships, and scheduling quarterly labor relations meetings. And this is to make sure that our communications are good between the unions and us. Handling union grievances, mentoring department heads in union and other personal matters, posting, interviewing, and hiring for various vacancies throughout town. Taking part in the budget prep in my own department and requests from other departments for personnel, hours, positions, etc., whether they need to work with unions or, you know, kind of how that works. Establishing HR department meetings bi-weekly to ensure smoother transitions and operations. We've moved offices to allow for a more efficient workflow. And allow others to have a bigger workspace as well. We've done an internal audit of documentation for scanning, storage and disposal and researching time and attendance and onboarding programs. And some of the focuses moving forward, process improvements and establishing processes to improve overall function and speed of processes. So hiring, onboarding, recruitment, payroll. Implementing a time and attendance program to speed up and make payroll processing more efficient. Currently not on paper, so. We need to get to the real age on that one. Implementing onboarding to make hiring and benefits paperless. Cross-training and ensuring manuals and processes are documented in my department. In addition, sharing those resources with other departments. Assisting with strategic planning and development. Establishing HR, the HR department in town functions. Making short-term, mid-range and long-term recruitment and retention strategies. Of course, the personnel policy update and implementation. And improve communications and transparency. With that, my department has seen some transitions, so I anticipate some growing pains with the new personnel. And we'll handle that as it comes up. And as we learn the town of Hadley and implement changes to the payroll process, but hope these changes will be a huge benefit to the town and their employees. With our employees being their biggest asset, it's important to ensure the HR department is supporting potential employees, current employees throughout their tenure with Hadley. In terms of the project management piece, I've really been brought in on new projects, such as the town hall exterior and town hall HVAC upgrades. Existing projects have still been handled in the TA's office. And with the transitions occurring, most of my efforts have been in HR. And so that's my update.
Very nice. Thank you.
Any questions?
I think I'll just make a statement. I appreciate the fact that as you alluded, at the outset of your update, right? This has been a journey for the town of Hadley, right? Having an HR director, we've had multiple iterations. So I just want to thank you for illustrating to our municipal employees in particular what an HR director does. So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving along, consent agenda. So tonight on the consent agenda, we just have a few items. We have the minutes from February 19th, 2025 for approval. We're being asked to accept the resignation of Joyce Chungla from the form of government committee. We have Save a Buck Auto Class 2 auto dealer's license. We have a one-day liquor license request by the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce for their annual Margarita Madness to be held on March 27th, 2025 at the mall. Is that right?
Yes. You're assuming that it's at the mall. Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I noticed a typo. I put
okay.
205 instead of 2025, Molly. I'm sorry. I was
Got it. Okay. And then finally, a film permit application, March 8th, 2025 to, I guess the filming would take place outside of the Russell School. Just for that one day.
Mhm.
Yep.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
All right, we're gonna give it to Amy.
Give it to
All right,
Amy.
Motion made by
Thank
David.
you.
All those in favor?
Get roll call.
Oh, roll call, right. Jennifer?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna jump on the agenda to the water and sewer abatement request. So this is from the owners of 344 Russell Street, Suite 15, also known as Hot Table Restaurant. Correct? Sure, yeah, and just you just introduce yourself for the public.
Christopher DuBois, owner of Hot Table Restaurant. Thank you for taking time to budget night. Yes. the same concerns as a business trying to control expenses while increasing revenue. And so, not too sure if we got the request for the abatement. Just looking for consideration. We've been in town here for over 10 years. Love doing business here in the town of Hadley, and nothing but supportive from everybody in town. We are not a large national chain. We started right here in Western Massachusetts, based in Springfield. And just looking for abatement due to continuously running water. And we tried to remedy. And you're actually, and your staff is great, or your people from the water and sewer. As soon as we told them we were having an issue, they came out the same day, even followed up after that. So as you see, our bills are 8 times of what they normally are, due to the backflow preventer continuously running. We did see a bump when we received our bill back in November. Contacts a plumber to come out, take a look at it. Thought it just might be some running toilets or leaking water. Had those replaced, tightened up. And then to our surprise, 3 months later, received the extremely large water and sewer bill due to that water running behind our ice machine. As you can see, the documentation with plumbers, equipment repair people, we immediately took action. So we understand the water is what it is, but I guess I think we're looking for relief more, maybe more on sewer. It's not your traditional sewer usage that it was toilets and dishwashers, things like that, just water continuously running. I don't know if there's any other information you needed for us, if there's, it's even a legitimate request for abatement, but I'm just looking for any, as we are trying to control our expenses, like everybody these days. Any help we can get.
I think you need a different plumber.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, he threw it over the fence to the equipment guy. The equipment guy takes it apart and goes, "Oh no, that's a backflow."
Yeah.
Keep running. So, yes, after a couple $1,000s in repair bills. Good stuff.
Yes, I mean, I think to your point, with the water's obvious. I mean, unfortunately.
The water is what the water is.
Right,
I
it
get
goes through the meter and
yes.
it's fine, so. So the distinction on the sewer, what's the,
Well, the sewer, I guess, that's where, the water $1,600, sewer's $2,400. If that, I guess your ratio, hitting the sewer, if it was normal restaurant usage, be toilets, dishwasher, the water going in. I guess it's clean water going directly into the sewer. Probably comparable to rainwater. So that's where I guess I'm looking for consideration, but it's just straight water.
Mr. McCarthy, could you speak to this, please?
Good evening. So unfortunately, the water in the sewer is water in the sewer. It's all treated the same, and it's not like it went down a storm drain or whatever and out to the river. It went through the sewer system, and we had to treat that water, and it does cost, operational expenses for us, whether it's, a leaking toilet, dumping backflow preventer. If it goes down the sewer, it goes down the sewer.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
so, I mean, I would just tell you, and we rarely grant abatements, for the reason that Scott just stated. I mean, there are times where there's an administrative error on our part, a meter that is acting up Right, I mean, I think in that case, when we find the errors on our end, you know, we'll grant. Rarely do we do it when there's a malfunction. But the home or the business owner. So just so you know, just one precedent for saying no.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're always open to hearing the story, and I think, you know, for me, it comes down to what Scott said. I mean, if the water's legitimately gone through and the town had to pay the expense of processing it, processing the throughput. That's usually kind of the line of demarcation. I don't know.
I agree.
No, it's the expense, you know, coming per unit, or is it just based on that?
It's our rates based on volume.
All that being said, we'll make a motion to deny.
Okay, yep, is there a second?
So I'll second for discussion.
Yep.
Is. Obviously, this is what, 5 times your normal usage, something like that.
Actually, probably close 8 to 10 times.
Okay, so, I know it's a big unexpected expense, so I don't know, is there a way to break out some payments over time for that, so it doesn't blow out your operating budget? I don't know if that's, I don't know how that works with collections.
Have you already paid this bill or?
I did, I made it, because, you know, the deadline was the 3rd.
Okay.
We did pay $1,000. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be delinquent in any way.
But you still owe the other.
Yes, hoping for some kind of favorable output.
Yeah,
Optimistic.
Because what I was thinking is if we could, I mean, it's a big chunk of change for a restaurant business to absorb, so I'd be in favor of waiving a late fee or something like that and allowing, you know, to pay over.
installment.
Yes, yeah, just to kind of absorb it better.
So that's something that we could talk to our collector about. Scott, because that's something you could talk to Sue about.
I can talk to Sue about that, or Kim, or.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
can't be the one.
Yeah,
That would be great. And, I mean, is that something you'd be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you spread it out, but you know, trying to level out expenses.
do you have a cap on the time frame that you're?
Well, I mean, ideally before the end of the fiscal year, right? So between now and 30th.
Would that be helpful? As far as-
Yeah, I mean, it would be,
We promised to come in and eat a lot of.
yes.
It does happen to be one of my favorite ones.
Mine too.
Any catering we can do for you or anything like that, you know, just don't run the water if you go to our establishment. Wash your hands in the cup.
So hopefully we can be helpful in that regard.
And I appreciate it. It's, yeah, it's just an unfortunate thing that happened, and he said we gotta apply some pressure on plumber to, we call him to, fix the problem.
So do you need to amend my motion?
I don't think so. I think
No, I think
the abatement's denied, but we're just offering it.
Okay,
it's at the end of.
okay.
Okay, roll call vote then?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes,
Keegan,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Do we want to make a motion to?
Sure,
do the-
yeah, let's
just in case
formalize
she
it.
needs it for, yeah. All right, well, I'll make a motion that we allow Scott to work it out with the collector's office as far as breaking the balance up into payments as long as they're paid by June 30th of this year.
waiving late fees.
Yeah, waive late fees.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes,
Keegan,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right,
thank
thank you.
you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, so let's go back to the regular agenda. We have public comments. 5.1, is there anybody here this evening for public? Comments? Seeing none, moving right along. Old business 6.1, land donation policy.
Yes, so this is your second read, second review of the land donation policy. The one recommendation that was made was to add a section to allow the select board to waive certain requirements, and I did that really as simply as I could. I don't like you know, being too wordy. The longer policies are, the less people read them. So I simply added a note that allows the select board, to reserves the right to waive any or all of the above requirements. If there's a piece of property that they're very interested in. And that was the only suggestion that I got. So essentially it's yours now to decide to vote to enact. And Jennifer is currently working on the other portion of this. Again, I think I mentioned last time, we kind of wanted to separate them, but we're having our attorneys look at a land purchasing policy, procurement policy. I don't know exactly what we call it yet.
Land
Acquisition.
acquisition policy, and it is with town council right now.
And so we'll have that on a future meeting for you to review.
Anybody have any questions for Mike about this policy?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by David, seconded by Amy. Roll call vote?
Roll call vote. Bill,
Yes.
Isaac.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. On that. New business, item 7.1. I think this is a typo. Is it Lois or is it?
It's
Louis?
Louis. It's Louis.
That was that.
So the select board is being asked to appoint Louis Hasper as an alternate building inspector for special projects. He, I believe, most recently retired from the city of Northampton. Right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Randy, seconded by Amy. Roll call vote?
I just have one question first. What is special projects?
Any project that there may be a perceived conflict or any issues with our building commissioner working with that project. Gotcha. Okay. That's all.
So is he part-time working in the office or is it just on an as needed basis?
Correct. Exactly that, Amy, when we need him.
Okay.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
7.3, select board is being asked to vote to open the annual town meeting warrant. Reminder, I think hopefully people signed up for Nixle, so they've got plenty of advance notice, but we'll probably send a few more out. Annual town meeting this year is being held on Thursday, May 1st at Hopkins Academy. And the annual town meeting public forum will be held the week prior, and that will be held on April 23rd. And that will be a hybrid meeting on the Council on Aging here, along with Zoom. I have a motion to open the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by David, seconded by Amy. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, then we have the town administrator selection committee. Actually, I'm gonna skip over that one for a minute. I'm gonna jump to 7.5, building procurement project discussion. Jennifer, take it away.
All right, so based off of everything that we've heard about what the budget looks like for next year, I think I'm asking y'all to pause on a couple of projects, moving them forward or even doing the procurement on the beginning phases of it. Specifically, the town hall exterior work. Lauren and I have been working with Eats since November 14th, we've been working with them on getting this done. The work is actually, their part of the work is almost complete. And we have a report from them. And based off of a cost estimate, we were moving forward to go to CPA to ask for money. When we got the quotes from them, there was over $2 million. That's not realistic to go to CPA for that amount of money, which means that we would need to borrow and find alternate funding sources. Based off of that number, Lauren and I felt that it was a good decision to come to y'all and ask y'all to how you felt about us pausing on this and taking it back up when the town's in a little bit of a better financial position to take on an extra cost. I will say this is a CPA project, so we do have the right to sort of keep whatever monies are left until 2027.
Yeah.
And we've been very clear with Dietz that there are obviously large cost restraints here, and they've already addressed how they can adjust the numbers when the time comes. So we've been very forthright with them. I'm a little disappointed because the CPA has asked that we not do studies that we could not in the future fund. This one, I do feel like it's very important because there's some ADA compliance issues that we need to be mindful of. But when we're having the conversations that y'all all just had with Linda and the finance committee, I don't know what we can do at this time. The second one is the town hall and Goodwin space needs study. This is for $80,000, and I've been working on getting the procurement documents together. But I realized again, as Mike and Linda came in and gave us the news that they were cutting this and they were cutting that, I realized that doing this study now means that in 2 years, when we can maybe pay for it, all the numbers are going to be out of date. So I'd like to hit pause on the procurement, hold the money, because we can again hold this money until the fall town meeting of 2027. So STM 2027. And hold it and see where we are this time in FY 26 and see if it's something that we can take back up and have progress with it. That was something that was pretty clear from the CPA. Don't spend our money and not produce anything. Historical also said it. So I want to be respectful of that. And also, as we're talking about employee time, me not putting the time in to these projects if we can't do anything with them. So that I'm asking y'all to take both of these off of our procurement schedule for the time being and allow them to be brought back up in a year's time.
Give you an A for common sense and foresight.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything changes, it's no harm tabling it now. We can always push it back up as a priority for something.
Absolutely. If y'all find more money, I will completely come and ask for it right away.
Well, you've got it to use, and you can always ask for an extension when the time comes.
I agree. You didn't like that response. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. Yeah, so we don't have to vote, correct?
No, this is just, y'all give me the nod. I'm gonna highlight them on my procurement list and I will move on to other projects.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Going back to 7.4 now that Randy is back. Select board will discuss the selection of 7 individuals to work with Paradigm on the selection of the new town administrator. So Mike, did you have any guidance on Paradigm?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, he suggested that we could follow, generally speaking, what is normally recommended for town project committees, things like that. He said he would prefer to keep it between 5 and 7. 5, he said, is much more manageable to work with, but I suspect that we may be able to easily find 7 people that would want to be on this committee, and he suggested selecting, some of your more prominent committees in town, for at least one representative of each of some of these committees, as well as, citizens. And essentially, I don't know that you necessarily have to select anything tonight. We could, put it out to all the committees and see what we get for representatives, or you can kind of give us some guidance as to what you'd like to see.
And as a recommendation, is there any select board representation on this, or?
Yeah, just like, select board, you could, select board rep, finance committee rep. I think we actually had 2 select board reps the last time around, so we'll do that again if you'd like. Planning, citizen, I guess residents as well, to get us up to 5 to 7.
I would like to ask Annie.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a dog in the fight, so to speak,
Well, and he operates pretty efficiently over there. And
Right.
so I think there's a lot that we could learn from. Normally I'd like to see 5 people, but I think for something like this, I think 7 is more in line with, so we can have the representation we need, because I think 2 from select board. 1 resident. Town resident, and then Danny and some committee, other committees, I think that's all, drop it down to 5, I think we're limiting ourselves in expertise.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. Seven.
We
10.
haven't posted this yet, right? So, I mean, have we had any, I mean, I know this isn't like out there yet, but have we had any like residents say anything yet that they want to know? Okay.
I haven't heard it.
When you say posted, Amy, are you talking about the job itself or this committee?
No, the committee.
No, this is the first.
Okay.
I think if we're gonna look for somebody out in the general public as well as committee members, we should post it everywhere all at once.
So superintendent, 2 select board, finance. 2. Alright. There you are.
Look, I mean, I'm just thinking from the standpoint that you've been doing the job. Like you were the police chief, I see.
Okay.
Oh, you were.
Talk about birds.
Yeah, that would be 5.
So then you could do two
Yeah.
residents.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we can. We'll
And
put it
2
out,
residents could be somebody who's on a board, right?
Right.
we'll put it out, we'll put it out to FinCom so they can select a rep, we'll put it out we'll advertise to residents. And then the board can decide who you'd like to represent, and I'll ask, and
Do we have some timeline on this, like when, how soon they might be,
He said
do
that
what.
like actually prepared to start working with the committee?
Show us
So-
the product.
They're gonna close. Yeah, I mean, I got some pretty defeating news when we first met. They're gonna close the application process. I think it's this coming Friday.
This coming Friday.
It's been open for a couple of weeks now. And he showed me his deadline chart. And working under the assumption that if they complete the deadlines as they work through it, he estimated making a selection that could begin contract negotiations with the select board sometime in July. Oh, yeah. And with the guesstimate that they would be in the seat in town hall after some training and some pass off with me in September.
Up until the 60 days.
Between the time that we signed the contract, they added a bunch of other clients in by the time the decision was made here.
Oh, because we had to wait for the fall town meeting.
They added clients.
And we had to get through our normal procurement process, which took time as well, so.
I'm just saying, since you've been there so long, you might as well just stay.
There you go.
Did he give you any idea how many potential applicants?
I
they
haven't
had?
gotten that out of him yet. I was waiting for it to close before I reached out. He did say that there was some people that he thought would be a great fit that he is reaching out specifically to try to add to the mix. But I don't know who has already been, so get some of that this week. I'm waiting for it to close and then I'll start digging.
Anybody from the board, I mean, so Jane's not here, right? Does anybody from the board want to jump on it? And part of the reason I was asking was there's an election coming up, so two of the sitting select board members are running, but there's no guarantee that those members will be here in time.
I think we cross that bridge when we come to it if we need to.
Yeah, or if it winds up being that, then maybe some understanding that the individual continues or something like that, but I'm just. I was hoping he was gonna say May, that was gonna be perfect.
No, I would say we make the appointment through the completion of the hiring process, and so regardless of anything changes, then. Maybe no sense in changing midway through the process. It would mess everything up and just delay it further, so.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Would it be smart to add HR as the HR director as like an advisory?
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to-
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Non-voting member. Yeah.
Should board over there.
Yeah. And not voting.
Right.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
keep an eye on me, so I'll screw it up.
Okay, so people want to think about it then, and we'll wait for Jane to be here, and then if anybody wants to raise their hand, they can do it at the next meeting.
Sure.
Perfect.
How you doing there, Amy?
We're here. I'm here. I'm sorry. I told Jennifer, I said, if I get to be too annoying, just mute me. And so I've been pretty cognizant of muting myself.
Save your energy and quit seconding all the motions.
Sorry.
Stealing Randy's thunder.
Yeah, really.
I think, last item, town administrator's report. Want to hit the highlights?
Yes, highlights very quickly. Lauren went through all the positions, so I'm not gonna go through those again. Classification and compensation, we finally got a draft report from Collins Center. We are going to meet with them to go over it and try to understand it, and then we will release it. See, same fiber hasn't changed, ambulance hasn't changed, the procurement parts of things, Jennifer spoke to much of that we're gonna put, kind of pause several of those projects. Russell School, we expect information back from them any day now. Nothing else has changed with the rest of the procurement. As far as the levy situation, we just met with Rich and Joe, who we've been working with on the levy assessment stuff. What was it? I can't, my days are running together. Was it today or yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Busy day.
Just met with them to work on next steps, and I've already reached out to Senator Comerford, who is excited to work on next steps. They are going to be putting together some numbers for us. We are going to be working on some things on our own side, and we will have more information as we work towards the future. All of the rest of this we have already discussed. Library roof, town council has all documents. We finally were able to gather everything from all parties who we are aware of that have documents on the roof. And town council is reviewing, and we'll learn more in the future. And as far as negotiations go, as most of, actually all three board members who are present are aware, at least one of you has been the liaison for the board on contract negotiations, so you know that we are working through that process. And, we're trying to go lightning speed here so we can get it done. But other than that, that's all I have to report this week.
Okay. So we have announcements this evening. I have one, just to remind boards and committees to turn in their annual report. I think Jennifer gave us a deadline of last Friday. So if you are a staff law and you intend to submit an annual report, please do so expeditiously. If you're not submitting one, then probably it'd be a good idea to let Jennifer know that as well. Okay. And then we're also looking for nominees for the Fred Oakley Award, as well as the annual report dedication that occurs at the annual town meeting. I think we have, at least one name on the table, but it would be great to have suggestions for people that you think should be honored. A reminder that the Oakley Award is for volunteerism specifically. And then the annual report dedication is a broader category, if I can put it that way. Just an individual deserving. Okay. Other than that, I did want to express condolences to the family of Daniel Yuzerski, who was a native of North Hadley, who passed recently. I live in Arizona, but I'm sure their family members still in the this is some part of the select board. Anything else? Nope, if not,
Amy's gotta talk.
I just muted her though.
I was just,
That was an interesting sound.
Amy, do you want somebody else to do the executive session motion?
Sorry, I'm unmuted now. She totally, you muted me.
You told me to.
Sorry, no, it was Jade. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to move into executive session pursuant with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A 2 and 3, to discuss strategy and preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, the town administrator, as well as the municipal employee union, police union, dispatch union, and firefighter union. With respect to collective bargaining or litigation, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And we will not be reconvening an open session.
Second.
Okay, so as chair of the Hadley Select Board, I reiterate what Amy just said, saying that we've moved and seconded to enter into executive session, and discussing the matter in open session would be deemed to have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the town of Hadley. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Isaac,
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
And Parsons.
Yes.
Okay, Amy, give us